The restaurant door creaked as he pushed it open, letting in a gust of cold evening air. People glanced up instinctively, then quickly looked away. To them he was just another tired, unwanted stranger. His coat was frayed at the sleeves, his hair messy as if he'd spent the night on a bench, and his hands slightly trembling from the chill outside. No one could imagine that underneath all that, hidden behind the sunken posture and quiet eyes, was Leonard Hale, owner of half the buildings on that very street. He walked slowly, deliberately, observing. A couple near the entrance wrinkled their noses and turned their chairs away. A waiter pretended to check his phone to avoid making eye contact. A hostess approached for a moment, but when she saw his appearance, her polite smile froze and faded. Sir, we're very full today, she muttered, even though Leonard could see at least 8 empty tables. He didn't argue. His entire purpose for being here was to see exactly this reaction. But even so, a tiny flicker of hurt crossed his expression. Money could buy anything except genuine humanity. He took a step inside anyway, standing awkwardly near the counter. A family at a booth huddled together protectively, another diner pulled her purse closer. Someone whispered, "Why did they let people like him just walk in?" Leonard swallowed hard. This was the world he had built his empire in, a world that bowed to wealth but shrank from the poor. Just then, a small, bright voice cut through the low murmurs. "Mom, that man, he looks cold." Leonard's head turned. At a small table near the window sat a girl of about 9, her big eyes filled with concern. Next to her, a tired-looking woman lifted her gaze from her nearly empty plate. Her clothes were simple, her hair loosely tied, her face lined with exhaustion, but when she looked at Leonard, there was no disgust, no fear. Only recognition of another human being struggling. The girl tugged her mother's sleeve again. "He needs help." The mother hesitated, not because she doubted, but because she weighed the consequences. Money was tight, judgment from others was harsher than winter wind. But kindness won. She stood up, slowly but firmly, and began walking toward the man everyone else pretended didn't exist. Leonard straightened, surprised. He had expected rejection. He had counted on it, even. But as she approached him with gentle eyes and the girl peeked from behind her legs, he felt something shift, something deep, almost painful. Because for the first time that day, someone saw him. Not the disguise. Not the billionaire hidden underneath. Him. Maria stepped closer, her hands slightly trembling, not from fear, but from uncertainty about how he might respond. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the way he held himself as though he expected to be pushed away again. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked softly. Her voice was like warm air in a frozen room. Leonard blinked, momentarily thrown off. He had prepared for insults, suspicion, even mockery, but not for genuine concern. He began, but before he could finish, the manager swooped in, waving his hands dramatically. "Ma'am, please step aside. We don't want issues," he said loudly, making sure nearby customers could hear. "People like him scare away paying guests." Lily stepped from behind her mother, planting her small body between Leonard and the manager like a tiny, defiant shield. "He's not scary," she snapped. "He's just hungry." A few customers turned their heads. One let out a soft, judgmental laugh. Another whispered, "Kids don't understand how the world works." Maria placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder, then looked the manager straight in the eye. Her voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "You don't treat people like this. Not in front of my daughter." The manager scoffed and crossed his arms. "If he can pay, he can sit. If not, he needs to leave. We have rules." Leonard lowered his gaze. He didn't want to start a scene, and he didn't want to ruin Maria's evening. But before he could speak, Maria guided him gently toward her table. "Come," she said. "Sit with us." He hesitated. "You don't have to. We want to," Lily insisted, tugging the chair out for him with all her tiny strength. Leonard sat, the warmth of their gesture settling around him like a blanket he didn't know he needed. Maria raised her hand, calling over a different waiter, one who looked uncomfortable but not unkind. "A bowl of soup, please," she said. "And water." The waiter nodded uncertainly and left. Leonard's voice cracked as he whispered, "You shouldn't spend money on me." Maria smiled faintly, even though her fingers were still curled around her nearly empty wallet. "Money comes and goes," she said. "But kindness, if we lose that, we lose everything." Lily nodded fiercely. "Exactly. And everyone deserves to eat. Leonard swallowed a lump in his throat. He had spent years signing million-dollar contracts, negotiating deals, building empires, but nothing had ever touched him the way this mother and daughter's simple kindness did. For the first time in a long while, he felt something unfamiliar spreading warmly through his chest. Gratitude. And a quiet, growing admiration. The soup arrived in a steaming white bowl, its scent drifting softly across the table. It wasn't much, just a simple vegetable broth, but to Leonard, who had been ignored and pushed aside all day, it felt like a feast. He stared at it for a moment, almost afraid to touch it. Maria noticed. "Go on," she encouraged gently. "It'll get cold." Leonard picked up the spoon slowly, his fingers brushing the warm ceramic as if grounding himself. The first sip made his eyes close briefly. Not because the soup was extraordinary, far from it, but because it was the first warm thing anyone had offered him in days, ever since he started this experiment of living as someone invisible. As he ate quietly, Maria watched him, her expression softening with every small, grateful bite he took. Lily kicked her legs under the table, humming something to herself, completely unbothered by the stares from other customers. A couple at the next table whispered loudly on purpose. "Unbelievable. Feeding a homeless man in a place like this. What's the world coming to?" Maria's jaw tightened, but before she could answer, the restaurant manager stormed over again, his shoes clicking sharply against the tiles. His face was flushed with irritation. "That's enough," he snapped. "I told you, he cannot stay here unless he pays." Maria rose slowly, placing both hands on the table, a quiet power radiating from her. "You see him as a problem," she said, voice steady. "I see him as a human being." The manager scoffed, crossing his arms. "This is a business, not a charity. You can't feed random vagrants." Maria cut in, "Put the soup on my bill." "You." The manager laughed, a harsh, belittling sound. "Can you even afford that?" Lily stood up abruptly, staring at him with fiery indignation. "That's rude. My mom works really hard. And even if we don't have much money, at least we have manners." A few customers looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with awkward curiosity. Maria gently guided Lily back to her seat, then turned to the manager again. "We're not leaving," she said firmly. "And neither is he." The manager's mouth opened and closed, caught between arguing and the fear of escalating things too far. Finally, he threw his hands up and muttered, "Fine. But if he causes trouble, it's on you." He walked away grumbling. Silence settled over the table for a moment. Leonard set his spoon down, visibly shaken, not by the manager, but by the courage of this small family who had nothing to gain from defending him. "You didn't have to do that," he murmured. Maria sat back down, her expression soft but determined. "I did. Because people deserve dignity, no matter how they look." Lily leaned forward, staring at Leonard with wide, earnest eyes. "And because good things happen when you help people, right, Mom?" Maria nodded. "Always." Leonard looked at them, this mother with a tired smile and this fearless little girl who saw the world through kindness rather than fear. Something inside him shifted deeper this time. He had come here testing humanity. But what he found was something impossibly rare. Two people willing to stand up for him, without knowing anything about him. Not his name, not his story, not his wealth, just his hunger, just his humanity. And that, he realized, was worth more than any fortune he had ever earned. Leonard sat quietly for a long moment, letting the warmth of the soup fade on his tongue while the warmth of their kindness settled deeper in his chest. The restaurant around them buzzed with conversation and judgment, but at this small table, the world felt calmer, softer. Maria reached into her small, worn handbag and pulled out a folded napkin. She handed it to him without a word. He noticed the way her fingers trembled slightly. She wasn't used to confronting people like the manager, and yet she had done it anyway. "You must be freezing," she said softly. Leonard looked at her hands, thin, tired hands that had clearly worked too many hours, too many days, offering him comfort she could barely afford to give. He swallowed hard. Thank you." Lily sipped her juice, watching him with open curiosity. "Where do you sleep?" she asked innocently. Maria winced. "Lily. It's okay," Leonard murmured, his voice strangely gentle. "I sleep wherever I can." Lily nodded, accepting his answer with the simplicity of a child who didn't judge, didn't calculate, didn't fear. Only understood. When they finished eating, Maria called for the bill. The waiter approached apologetically, sliding the printed slip across the table. Maria glanced at it, her heart sinking just a little. It wasn't much, but for her, it was enough to matter. Still, she didn't hesitate. She reached into her wallet, counting carefully, making sure she had enough bus fare left for the ride home. "Please," Leonard said quietly. "You don't have to do this." Maria offered a tired smile. "Maybe not. But I want to. Life is hard enough. We should help when we can." The words hit him with surprising force. He had spent years building a company that preached innovation and efficiency, but not kindness. He had forgotten what that actually looked like. As they stepped outside, a cold wind cut across the parking lot. Clouds cracked open, releasing a sudden, sharp burst of rain. People rushed to their cars, shielding themselves with bags and jackets. Maria lifted her thin sweater over Lily's head, shielding her instantly. Leonard stood exposed, the rain hitting his already worn coat, soaking through within seconds. "Wait," Maria called out. She reached into her bag again and pulled out a small umbrella, cheap, slightly bent, obviously used for many seasons. She stepped toward him, hesitated, then placed it gently in his hands. "Take it," she said. "You need it more than we do." He stared at the umbrella, stunned. "But, this is yours," he protested softly. Maria shook her head. "We'll manage." Lily grinned. "Mom always says kindness doesn't make you poor." Leonard stood frozen in the rain, holding an umbrella that felt heavier than gold. He opened it slowly, watching the mother and daughter walk away, huddled together. Beneath nothing but the flimsy sweater and their shared warmth. He could barely breathe. He had been testing the world, but now the test felt small and foolish compared to what he had received. Kindness from those who had almost nothing. Once they disappeared around the corner, Leonard stepped into the shadowed alley beside the restaurant and pressed 2 fingers to a tiny earpiece hidden behind his hair. "It's him," came a voice on the other end. "Are you ready to reveal yourself?" Leonard looked down at the umbrella, rain pattering softly against its surface. "Not yet," he said quietly. "They're real. I need to see more." "You want to extend the test?" the voice asked, surprised. "No," Leonard answered, watching the path where Maria and Lily had walked away. "I want to understand them. I want to understand kindness like that." He folded the umbrella close to his heart. "And when the time is right, I'm going to change their lives." Leonard remained in the shadowed alley for a while, the rain softening into a steady rhythm around him. He held the umbrella close, not because he needed it, but because of what it represented. No business deal, no multi-million-dollar contract had ever made him feel the way that small act of generosity did. A static crackled in the earpiece again. "Leonard, did something happen?" the voice asked, impatient now. "You disappeared from the cameras." "I'm fine," he said, though his voice sounded distant even to himself. "Just thinking." "Thinking?" the voice scoffed. "You were supposed to observe, collect data on customer behavior, finalize your report for the board." Leonard cut him off gently. "This is bigger than a report." He stepped out of the alley and into the quiet street, the restaurant's neon sign flickering behind him. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, casting soft reflections on the pavement. People rushed by, umbrellas open, never noticing the man who silently blended into the city. "They didn't have much," Leonard continued, walking slowly. "But they gave anyway. So, does it matter?" The voice replied. "You're a billionaire. You can help them later if you want. Just finish the assignment." Leonard exhaled long and slow. "That's exactly what bothers me," he said. "I can help them later, but they helped me now, when they thought I had nothing." A pause. "What are you going to do?" the voice asked cautiously. Leonard didn't answer immediately. He turned the umbrella in his hands, noticing a tiny tear near the edge, sewn clumsily with mismatched thread. Someone, Maria, had repaired it by hand. She had tried to make the old thing last a little longer. His chest tightened. "I'm going to repay them," he whispered. "Properly. Not just money. Something real." He walked down the street, passing luxury buildings he owned, stores whose rent he collected every month. All of it looked different now, smaller, almost insignificant in comparison to the kindness he'd witnessed inside a second-rate restaurant. "But not today," he added. "They don't need a billionaire to swoop in and fix everything." "Then what do they need?" the voice asked. Leonard looked toward the direction Maria and Lily had gone, imagining them walking through the rain with their thin sweater and brave smiles. They need someone who understands their struggle, he said softly. Someone who sees them the way they saw me. And who's that supposed to be? The voice asked skeptically. Leonard stopped in front of a bus stop, the same one Maria and Lily likely used. He lifted the umbrella, feeling its weight again. Me, he said quietly. But not the man in the suit, not the billionaire the world bows to. He turned, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. They need the man they helped. He stepped into the bus shelter, sitting on the cold metal bench that countless tired workers had used before. He wasn't here for show. He wasn't here to test anyone anymore. He was here to understand their life, step by step. The rain wrapped the city in a muted hush. Leonard closed the umbrella and held it gently across his knees. When the time is right, he murmured, almost to himself, I'll walk back into their world, not as a stranger, but as someone ready to rebuild their lives alongside them. He leaned back, feeling, maybe for the first time in years, completely certain of what he needed to do next. And as the bus pulled in, splashing water across the pavement, he whispered words no one but him could hear. This is only the beginning.